Good morning. I'm Reverend Jay Brooks. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm part of the ministry team here, along with the Reverend Jennifer Brower and the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore. Let's rise now in body or spirit, or both, as we sing our gathering song, Mi Yamalel. The English version.
Here we go. Who can tell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero sage came to our aid. Who can tell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero sage came to our aid. At this time of year, in days of yore, let the beast the temple did restore. And today our people, as we dream, will arise and light and be redeemed. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero sage came to our aid. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero sage came to our aid.
Please be seated. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock during this season of awe. We gather today with our doubts and our convictions, with our fears and our hopes, with our failures and our aspirations, with our sorrows and our joys. Whatever the faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. No matter your race or where you were born, you are welcome here. Whoever you are, whatever your identity, whomever you love, you are welcome here. Our life together invites each one of us to create loving religious community, encourage spiritual growth, and build a more just and joyful world. In the spirit of our shared values, over the last few weeks, we've collected donations to help feed the hungry through the North Shore Soup Kitchen, the AIDS Center of Queens County, and the United Veterans Beacon House. You raised $2,000. Congratulations, and thank you. As a community that cares for each other and the world, we're in a covenantal relationship. Members who have not yet submitted a membership renewal and pledge form need to act before December 31st so that your membership continues into the next year. Can you believe we're close to the end of the calendar year? Pick up a renewal form at the welcome desk. In this congregation, there are many beliefs but one faith, and this season of awe brings holy days from many religious traditions. Today we honor the Jewish celebration of Hanukkah. We remember the struggle for religious freedom and the rededication of Jerusalem's temple. On Tuesday, we'll honor the Christmas celebration of the birth of Jesus with Christmas Eve services, a family service of stories and carols at 5 p.m., and a service of readings and carols at 7 p.m. Now let's celebrate Shelter Rock's unity in diversity as we take a moment to greet our neighbors. Centering music. We are the generations between the fires. Behind us, the flame and smoke that rose from Auschwitz and from Hiroshima and from the burning forests of the Amazon. Before us, the nightmare of a flood of fire, the flame and smoke that could consume all earth. It is our task to make from fire not an all-consuming blaze, but a light in which we see each other fully, all of us different, all of us bearing one spark. We light this flame to see more clearly that the earth and all who live as part of it are not for burning. We kindle this chalice to see more clearly the rainbow in the many-colored faces of life. Blessed is the one within the many. Blessed are the many who make the one. And now, let's rise in body or spirit as we sing, Light One Candle.
Please rise as you are able for our words and song of affirmation, whose words are printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, this do we affirm and covenant with each other.
Let peace, goodwill, honor,
Don't let the light go out. During this season of awe, when light has special significance, we remember the heritage of our faith tradition, the struggle for religious freedom, and the precious liberty to follow our own spiritual path. We remember and honor those who made it possible for us today to worship according to our conscience. Our Unitarian Universalist principles, the values we share, affirm respect for every human being and each person's right to a free and responsible search for meaning. As the offering basket comes around, we have the opportunity to give in support of this congregation and its commitment to freedom and justice. The ushers may now come forward to receive our gifts.
Penniless, penniless. I have come with less and still less to this place of my need and the lack of this hour. That was a comforting word the prophet spoke. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, said the Lord. Comforting indeed for those who have neither might nor power, for a blade of grass, for a reed. The miracle, of course, was not that the oil for the sacred light in a little cruse lasted as long as they say, but that the courage of the Maccabees lasted to this day. Let that nourish my flickering spirit. In this community, we honor the joys and sorrows that mingle in every life. To nourish your spirit, light a candle as you feel moved. Be careful not to reach across a flame.
In this season of awe, and perhaps a season of too much to do, let's pause to connect with the currents of the soul. We gather in loving community to remember that we are not alone. We gather with like-hearted others so that each of us can again notice the wonder of life, can in unity reaffirm the values we cherish, and can discover how to create a life of meaning and purpose. We gather once again to celebrate our common humanity, our shared vision, and our glorious diversity of traditions and perspectives. May peace be upon us and joy in every heart. Amen.
joyous Hanukkah.
One of the goals of the Jewish way of living is to experience commonplace deeds as spiritual adventures, to feel the hidden love and wisdom in all things. Among the many things that the religious tradition holds in store for us is the legacy of wonder. Wonder, or radical amazement, is the chief characteristic of the religious attitude toward history and nature. Humanity will not perish for want of information, but only for want of appreciation. The beginning of our happiness lies in the understanding that life without wonder is not worth living. What we lack is not a will to believe, but a will to wonder. The meaning of awe is to realize that life takes place under wide horizons, horizons that range beyond the span of an individual life, or even the life of a nation, a generation, or an era. Awe enables us to perceive the world intimations of the divine, to sense in small things the beginning of infinite significance, to sense the ultimate in the common and the simple, to feel in the rush of passing the stillness of the eternal.
Singing on, so, Hanukkah, 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 singing on, so.
Simcha kula nes gadol hayasha,
Simcha hula, singing on, so, Hanukkah, 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 singing on, so, Simcha hula, nes gadol hayasha, Simcha. Avraham, Sevivo, so, Hanukkah, Hanukkah, Sevivo, so.
Anzima Kulam, Nesgadol Hayasha, Nesgadol Hayasha,
Simcha Ulam.
At sunset today, Hanukkah begins. It's the festival of lights in the Jewish tradition, a time when Jews all over the world light the first candle of Hanukkah using a menorah that holds 8 candles. The word Hanukkah means dedication. The ceremony recalls events of more than 2,000 years ago. The lights of the menorah, one for each night, recall an oil lamp that was supposed to burn constantly in the great Jewish temple in Jerusalem. The light had gone out. Syrian Greeks had conquered the Jewish homeland and made the temple a place to worship Zeus. Led by the Maccabee family, the Jewish people reclaimed their temple and their land. Judah Maccabee was the war leader and priest who rededicated the temple. His name, Maccabee, means hammer. In the rededication ceremony, Judah would light a small oil lamp that was supposed to burn without ceasing. But there was only enough ritually purified oil to last for one day. There were 2 ways to get more oil. One was to send a messenger for more, but that would take 7 days. The other was for Judah Maccabee in his priestly role to purify the oil. But when they took back the temple and he walked in, he'd just been in a battle. To conduct the ceremony to make the oil ritually pure, he would have to go through a purification ritual himself, a ritual that would take 7 days. As the story goes, he lit the lamp anyway and sent a messenger for more oil. And to everyone's amazement, the lamp continued to burn all through the 8 days it took to bring in a fresh supply of the oil. A miracle. Now, there are some scholars who think that Judah Maccabee took the 7 days to ritually purify himself and waited to light the oil lamp until after he was qualified to purify the oil. That after all this struggle, they would wait while he went through the rituals of their religious tradition would in itself be a kind of miracle. But let's turn back to the story as it's been handed down to us. Today, Hanukkah lasts 8 days, and those of us who celebrate this holiday light a candle each day to honor that miracle. But what exactly was the miracle? It was a miracle that Jews with little training in war drove the Syrian Greeks out of Jerusalem and reclaimed the temple. It was a miracle that 1 day's worth of oil lasted for 8 days. It was perhaps a miracle that Judah, knowing the oil wouldn't last long enough, lit the lamp anyway. So do we need to believe in a miracle? Maybe the miracle was that a dozen different people crept in to check the lamp and secretly top it off with a little cooking oil, and nobody talked about it. Maybe it's a miracle that the story of the miracle, and most of all, the story of the stubborn, unrelenting Maccabees who reclaimed the temple and their right to worship in the way of their faith is a story that we tell 2,000 years later. 2,000 years. What a miracle it would be if something we did was celebrated in song and story for 2 millennia. What a miracle it would be if each of us committed heart and mind, body and soul to the values we cherish, so that centuries later people would speak of us with amazement. This is the burden, and this is the promise, and this is why we must not fail. Abraham Joshua Heschel, the great 20th century Jewish theologian, said, "There is a meaning beyond absurdity. Every deed counts. Every word is power." Judah lighting the lamp that was sure to run out of oil may have seemed an absurdity, but every deed counts. This was faith, an act of spiritual audacity. This was a pilgrimage of the heart. It was a daring commitment to the moment of rededication, the very moment that was the culmination of their longing and their struggle. To put it off for a week, to ensure the security of the oil supply, would have perhaps been an ironic rejection of the purpose that drove them to accomplish the impossible. After defeating their oppressors, how could Judah Maccabee let a little thing like the improbable stop him an inch short of the goal? Miracles, they're in us and around us all the time. When we classify them as nothing more than stories, using that tone of condescension, stories, we forget that a story is humanity's most powerful and effective motivator. What stories will we tell as our own stories? What awe will seize us and claim our lives for a purpose greater than ourselves? What wonder will our lives evoke in the children generations hence who remember our stories and find in them inspiration to create their own? Audacious longing, burning songs, daring thoughts, an impulse overwhelming the heart, a life of purpose and meaning. When I was a child, I read stories of the civil rights movement, and I lamented that the great moments were all in the past. It seems that there are still mountains of purpose and meaning for me to claim as my own. Light one candle for those who are suffering. Have we come this far, always believing that justice will somehow prevail? We may look on the daring of the Maccabees as extreme and implausible. They took on the conquerors, the oppressors, the ruling powers of their world, certainly an event that happens only every 2 millennia. But then there were other acts of valor and courage. Think of the courageous and audacious people who 50 years ago, just 50 years ago, marched from Selma to Montgomery. And then there's that young Swedish teenager who a little over a year ago started a solo protest that has become a worldwide movement to save the earth. One person who sat down with a handmade sign with no reason to believe that anyone would notice. Light one candle. It's all so implausible, so unlikely, and yet it happens again and again in human history. Call it a miracle. It's a miracle that happens, I believe, not because someone sits down and works out a complicated flowchart and an 87-step plan to change the world. I think this kind of miracle happens when someone who has, in a day-to-day and very ordinary way, been trying to live according to values we would find familiar, and then keeps encountering obstacles, roadblocks, impediments, and so they decide to get where they mean to go anyway. They decide to do something. The Maccabees might never have fought their oppressors at all if the Greek soldiers who came to their village hadn't demanded that the patriarch sacrifice a pig to the Greek gods. He wouldn't do it. I mean, seriously, a pig? Think what they were asking of him. These moments, these are momentous moments. Abraham Joshua Heschel says these moments are always waiting for us. They're always available. Think about it. Rosa Parks wouldn't have given up her seat on the bus, a single small act rising from the constantly repeated demand to give up her seat and move to the back. When the driver forced her off the bus, it started a citywide bus strike because for many people of color, it was one of those moments, maybe a pig moment. And the strike continued until the bus company changed the rule about what color of human being could sit where. And maybe the people who started walking over the Pettus Bridge out of Selma might not have gone all the way to Montgomery. It's a long way to walk to make a point about voting. But the first time they tried it, the officers of the law knocked them down. And that was a pig moment. And when they tried again, and they did try again, people from all over the country went with them, and they walked all the way. These moments. Greta Thunberg was 11 when she learned about the dangers of climate change and the millions who would suffer when the oceans rose. She and her family began doing all the small things we know can help to reduce our carbon footprint. This is living our values in daily life in all those small ways. But she became frustrated that it was so individual. She thought the government should take action. The approach of the 2018 parliamentary elections, all those politicians seeking votes but not taking action to reduce climate change, for her, that was a pig moment. She was 15 when she decided to sit on the steps of the Swedish parliament with a sign that said, "School strike for climate." The first day, she was alone. The next day, someone else came. And then there were more, and then many more, and a year later, there were 4 million people in 150 cities around the world striking for climate change, for action to limit climate change. And it started because she sat down on the steps with a handmade sign. Every deed counts. Every word has power. Judah Maccabee reached Jerusalem. There wasn't enough oil. He lit the lamp anyway. Every deed counts. He was not allowed to stop there. The Greek soldiers regrouped. Judah Maccabee didn't get to maintain ritual purity for the rest of his days. The struggle continued until finally the Greeks gave up and left Judea to the Jews. And we know that the struggle for freedom was far from over for the Jewish people. Over the centuries, that struggle continued. Even when people said, "Never again," and meant it as a vow, a promise, a commitment, the specter of oppression and hatred hovers even today, perhaps especially today. Mountains of purpose and meaning, mountains still remain for us to claim. And I know that many of us are tired. Some of you may have already walked from Selma to Montgomery. Some of you may be weary beyond words. Maybe all you have the energy to do is tell the stories that will inspire the next generation to take up the hammer of justice and ring the bell of freedom. Some of them may be here in this room looking for inspiration. Who can retell the things that befell us? The children of Judea, the children of humanity. Who can count them? Yet in every age came a hero or sage. The miracle was not that the oil for the sacred light in a little cruse lasted as long as they say, but the courage of the Maccabees lasted to this day. May that miracle nourish our flickering spirits. May the stories be told again and again. And if we remember the stories, if they inspire us to live our values as simply and directly as we can, then it's possible. It's just possible, even if it's implausible, that awe will seize us and claim our lives for a greater purpose. May it be so. Let's rise in body or spirit as we sing our final hymn, I Know I Can.
And
My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. Amen, and blessed be.